Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of An Author's Kiss right here on self-discoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Torrey. My guest today is Chester L. Richards. He has written a few books, but the book we're going to be talking about today is From the Potato to Star Trek and Beyond, or the potato. Memoirs of a Rocket Scientist. This is going to be very interesting. The title of this show is From Star Trek to Crocodiles. I really want to know about this one. And it is his memoir, The Trek Continues. He's an award-winning author and rocket scientist, and he returns with the true tales of hair-raising adventure and resilience. He is also this is his second volume, and he expands on the journey he began from the potato to Star Trek and beyond, blending pulse-pounding adventure with poignant reflections on life, love, and loss. From near-death experiences with crocodiles in Africa to white-knuckle flight back home in California, The Trek Continues dives deep into the real-life escapades of a man who helped imagine the universe on screen, and then went out and lived it. He shares what it meant to survive, to grieve, to grow. And the center of the memoirs of his late wife, a brilliant and spirited present reader's first glimpse in the book one, responding to fan letters asking to learn more about her. And Richards infuses her new collection with her voice and stories and extraordinary impact she had on his life. So let's look at this beautiful love letter to his wife, the journey of exploration, the ups and downs and the crocodiles and all of that. A funny story, there was a woman called Miss Crocodile, and she always wanted to go and see the crocodiles because of her namesake, and she ended up got eaten by a crocodile. So sometimes you've got to be careful what you ask for, right? So, welcome to the show, Chester.
Well, I'm very pleased to be here. It's hard to follow up that kind of an introduction, but I'll try.
Rocket scientists, crocodiles. I mean, where do we start? Let's start with the crocs. What happened there?
Okay, well, first of all, the lady who got eaten by a crocodile, I have to say it, among the natives in part of the world where we visited, there's a 1 in 3 chance you're going to get eaten by a crocodile sometime,
right. Yes, I know. It just kind of seemed to be her fate.
Yeah. Well, the natives seem to get along with it, and there's a story as to how we were able to bathe in the river with crocodiles all around. There's a thing called croc rocks that we used to toss in the river in order to clear the crocs away long enough that we could dip ourselves in and get ourselves clean. So there's lots of interesting stories about that.
I mean, actually, everything is always portrayed that if you're in the water and a croc's there, they're coming to get you. So how come they didn't come and get you?
Well, you always have a companion when you go bathing, and you take turns. What you do is you put together a pile of rocks, little rocks that you can throw a long distance, like baseball-sized rocks, and big rocks that go kerplunk when they go in the water. Okay, so what you do is you find a part of the river where there's an eddy, where the water is pretty calm because it's flowing backwards, and you pile up a pile of croc rocks, and you look for the little bubbles in the water, these little eyes that are sticking out of the water. So you know that there are crocodiles there, and you need to scare them away. So you start plunking rocks into the water. The big rocks will really scare the crocs quite a long distance. And then when they start to creep back in, your companion throws the little rocks at them, and that keeps them at bay. So then you do your quick bathing, and then you trade off. And the other guy or woman, whoever you happen to be with, you pick whoever's there. uh, does the bathing, and then you go back to your campsite and you're all nice and clean and refreshed and ready for for the
And you
rest of the
weren't
evening.
lunch or dinner.
I don't know whether the natives in that part of the world, and these were very primitive natives,
Mhm.
um, whether they had a similar technique or not. But I'll tell you, uh, when there's crocodiles, and they're lightning quick, these are
Mm.
Nile crocodiles, and they are extremely fast. I'm sure we've all seen videos
Yeah,
of
yes.
crocs pulling an antelope into the water, things of that sort. Um, you really pay attention. You really
Mhm.
do. It is dangerous, and you just have to take precautions.
I think that goes with anything in life, isn't it? Everything it can be dangerous, and it's like be sensible about it. There's always something you can do. There's always a way of approaching it, but it's like use common sense, use the sensibility. One thing don't do is step into fear because they smell fear. It doesn't matter what animal is. We smell fear, right? So
Yeah,
fear
I think
is,
your behavior changes when you're afraid.
uh-huh.
You get there's a certain boldness that's required. There's a funny story. So my parents and my kid sister were staying in a cabin up in the Sequoias in the Sierra Mountains. And there was a rustling at the door. And my mom, you have to picture my mom. She was Sicilian and she was about 4 feet 10. I mean, a
I'm
little tiny woman.
full of vigor.
But she was absolutely fearless. And
Hmm.
I have some wonderful stories about her. Um, so there was wrestling at the door, and mom got very annoyed by this. This is a story my dad told me, and my sister confirmed the story, by the way. Mom got very annoyed at the wrestling at the door, so she picked up a broom, opened the door, and there was a bear on the front porch of the cabin. And mom chased the bear away with the broom.
Yeah.
And there is no question at all. My mom was the alpha in that situation, and the bear
Hmm.
was not going to challenge my mother, my 4 foot 10 inch tall mother. So,
But there goes. It's like just because it's bigger doesn't mean it's mightier. Everything has a fear trigger. I met a bear with my dog, and
uh-huh.
there was a white rock, and the bear was on the other side of the rock, and my dog is on this side. I saw the bear. I called my dog over. She was off leash, put her on leash, told her to sit, and I was calm, so she was calm. And the bear came from around and just kind of on all fours looking at me. I had a conversation with it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for letting us walk through your forest. You're absolutely beautiful. You're stunning. I have high regard for you. And the bear kind of tilted the head this way and that way, and then went off into the woods. Right.
Yeah.
And there was another time the bear came up to the window of our house. The dog was extremely calm until I realized the door is open. What if the bear came in? So I dashed to the door. That's when the dog became ferocious, like barking. But I think it's a
Oh,
lot to do with how we face fear.
oh yeah. There's
Uh,
there's videos on the web, and I think they're real, of cats chasing bears that
Yes,
get into the backyard.
yes,
And the bears
yes.
go away. They're just terrified by these
Well, they,
little
they, you know,
cats.
they're flying at them. They're flying at them, and it's like, what the hell is this? They're coming at me. I've got to get out of here. Yeah, you see it all the time,
Yeah,
and
so
it's like,
I
yeah.
mean, you don't want to be afraid, but you do want to be careful.
Yes, there comes in that common sense, right? And it's like, um, once your mum chases them off the porch with the broom, go back inside and close the door. So it's, you know, yeah. But
Well,
that's a good metaphor for
dad
life.
had some words with my mother after that one.
I've literally on a story of fear is that I lived in South Africa for some time, and I was taking some orphanage kids to the point where the two oceans meet.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
there's a bus there, and they have their dog on the bus, and the kids have walked up, and they pass baboons all the time. And they kind of give food to the baboons, and the
Yeah.
baboons they leave people alone. But somebody let the dog out, and the dog is running up, and the baboons are like this, ooh, what snack, right? So I run down past the baboons, pick the dog up and put it back in the bus. And then somebody said, didn't you put yourself in the bus? They can smell the dog on you now. And I said, no, I only put the dog in the bus. But they literally, when they pack, they can tear limbs. they can just tear people apart. So they're okay on their own, but do not get
Oh,
anywhere
they
near
are
them as a
very
pack.
strong animals. Well, we
Yeah.
encountered a troop of baboons. We were doing a very short get acquainted exercise on the Awash River in Ethiopia, and there were baboons up on the cliff throwing stuff at us. Fortunately, we didn't get hit by any of the things they were
Hmm.
rather unpleasant things that they were throwing at
Yeah,
us.
yeah. Yeah. Ugh, I'm gonna need to get back in the crocodile water. Now, what took you to Ethiopia? What's taking you to Africa to bathe with crocodiles and everything else? What
Well,
was
it's
that
kind of a
journey?
these things tend to go back into childhood. But when I was a little boy, my parents took me to the Grand Canyon,
Mm,
and was a little theater run by the Cole Brothers Studio. The Cole Brothers had in 1913 taken a wooden boat through the Grand Canyon, but they had a movie camera in
mm,
1913
wow.
and they filmed it. So that film has become a classic. So Emery Kolb was narrating the film that he and his brother had taken all these long years before. Well, long years before, this was like 1950, so
Hmm.
it wasn't that much longer ago.
Not at that time, no.
Anyway, I got absolutely fascinated with the Grand Canyon and river running in the Grand Canyon, and so I started doing that in the early 70s, and I took a trip down the Grand Canyon, a riverboat, and I got into the river culture. So I did a whole
Mm,
bunch of rivers, all the way from various parts of Alaska, all the way across the country to Africa. So what happened on the Africa trip was, so I'm in the Grand Canyon, I'm sitting around a campfire on a boating trip in the Grand Canyon. And my friends, the boatmen, were talking about how they had just done an expedition on this wild river in Africa, the Omo River in Ethiopia. And it really was a wild river. It was equivalent to the Colorado River, and the canyon was actually deeper than the Grand Canyon that
wow.
they went through. But because of the tsetse flies, however you pronounce that, um, the, those flies carried a disease
Hmm.
that killed the cattle, the domesticated cattle. So there were no natives in the area at all in that canyon. It was completely wild territory.
Hmm.
So it's like going back and, into far, far into the past. Um, and
Cave
then,
times.
then of course, we have ultimately came out of the canyon and we were in an area where we were dealing with tribesmen that
Mm,
were they were basically Neolithic. Their culture was about 10,000 years before ours.
hmm.
Um, it was so we spent a few days with the natives, and it was like getting in a time machine and going back in
Yes.
time 10,000 years. The interesting thing was, and I had some concerns before we entered that area, was how we would get along with the natives. Because, there's this huge difference culturally
Oh,
between us
yes.
and the natives down there. Well, it turned out we got along fine. There was a lot of laughing, a lot of hand waving, a lot of smiling, exchange of food, exchange of toys and things of that sort. And it was a very enjoyable experience. But I've actually done time travel in that sense of
Hmm.
going back in time 10,000 years.
Did you ever remember the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy?
Yes, I did.
You know, with the Coca-Cola bottle landing
Yes.
and this come from God, I've got to go and take it back. And a brilliant movie, absolutely hilarious.
Well, it was very much, well, it wasn't quite the same as that. Um, I think these tribesmen, some of them were sophisticated. They had some contact. Some of the tribes had contact with the government, so they knew about the outside world. But there were basically three tribes, the Bodi, the Bacha, and the Mursi. The Bacha was a tribe that had moved into the area and nobody knew they existed. We were
mm,
the people who discovered their existence and reported that
wow.
to the government as we got off at the end of the expedition. So that's how primitive these people were. The Bodhi and the Mersey were technically at war with each other,
Oh no.
and the Bacha had their village in between the two tribes
Oh dear.
in a little fortified village that they had. But everybody seemed to get along when in neutral territory. There was an area alongside the river where everybody came to trade.
Mm.
And after they did their trading, they go back
Fight
and
each other.
went back to war with each other. It's
Why?
just
Yes.
one
Just
of those.
shows, it doesn't matter, modern days or not, with that Neanderthal need to fight each other, just like, how do we get that out of our system?
Yeah, well, the Japanese sent an expedition in there a number of years after we were there. We were there in 1976, and I think about 1972 or 73, the Japanese put in a bunch of anthropologists in there to, and I read the anthropologist's report. I think they got everything wrong. It was totally different than what we had experienced. But it was interesting to see the different perspectives from having actually experienced something and then reading what academics thought was going on.
Now, did this influence your becoming an aerospace engineer, inventor of 19 patents, and also Star Trekkie, who wrote the, how do you pronounce it? The Thelian Web?
Tholian Web.
Tholian Web? I
Tholian,
mean,
yes.
so, I mean, was it those travels and seeing kind of the world backwards, but representing today and where are we going to be tomorrow? What was that fascination and
No,
what
no, it
brought all
started when
that about?
I was just a little boy.
Mm,
And I got hooked into reading science fiction.
mm.
Um, so I was a precocious reader. A little unusual, but I typically read a book a day while
Wow,
I was
yes.
growing up. I was then I studied physics, and my reading speed dropped from a book a day down to about an hour a page.
Yeah.
And
Translation
I've
every
never
line.
since recovered my reading speed. So I sort of plow through books now. But we had a very large regional library in Glendale where I was living, Glendale, California. And I had an arrangement with the head of the library where every science fiction book that came in the library, newly published science fiction book, I got first dibs. So they
Mm.
would set the book aside, and I would read the book and give a book report to the librarian
Oh,
as to
neat.
whether it was a good book or not. And I did that from I guess, I don't know, I must have been 7 years old, something like
Wow.
that, when I started doing that, when I made that arrangement with the librarian.
Good for
And
you.
and so I grew up reading science fiction, and
Mm,
that's a major part of my education. I mean, what a writer is doing in science fiction is he's taking a piece of the world
mm.
history and he's setting it in a different scene.
Yes.
But he's basically talking about people and how they react to different situations. And
Hmm.
so it's very educational if you look at it from that point of view. And boy, are the stories a lot of fun. So
I,
that's how I got
I'm,
hooked
yeah,
into it.
I'm most certainly a sci-fi person. I love sci-fi. I love things that are in different dimensions and different worlds, and I love looking at things through different lenses. I always
Yeah.
have been. I'm a Star Warsy. I'm a Trekkie. I'm everything along that line. But how did you, who are, aerospace engineer, end up writing an episode for Star Trek?
Well, so I got a degree in physics, and then I went to graduate school studying physics and then later engineering. Switched over from physics to engineering, which turned out to be a good deal. And along the way, I got involved with student politics, and uh, I was one of the first students at the brand new University of California, Irvine campus down in next to Newport Beach. And so they needed a student government. So I got myself elected to help put together the student government. So I ran the conservative faction on the Constitution Committee. And leading the liberal faction on the Constitution Committee was this very formidable lady, Judy Burns. Very, very, so she was my political opponent. We put together the student government and wrote the Constitution, and it was adopted. It's still in effect. The
Hmm.
Constitution is the same today. And that was in 1965, a long,
Wow.
long time ago.
Yeah.
Um, so Judy and I became very good friends. I mean, if you're going to work together with people, even if you're on the opposite sides of the fence, you get to
Yes.
be very good friends. And Judy had this idea that she wanted to write for Star Trek. Actually, what she wanted to do was she wanted to meet Leonard Nimoy because
Yes.
she was a great
Mm,
fan of his, and she needed an excuse to meet him. So that she came up with this idea, since she had been a storyteller from the time she was a little girl, that she would write a script for Star Trek. And so I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even have a television when all of this started. I had to bought a television just for the purpose of watching the moon landing. Um, so Judy sat me down and ran a bunch of Star Trek tapes, and that's how I got acquainted with the show.
mm.
And that got into my head. So one night I went to sleep, and I had a dream that I was on the bridge of the Enterprise, and there was a ghost haunting the bridge. And everybody was terrified of this ghost. It was going through the walls and just
Yes.
scaring the bejesus out of
Mm,
everybody. So I woke up, the dream woke me up, and I made some notes. I wrote wrote about the dream, and I says, "Well, I'll talk to Judy in the morning. That's an interesting idea for a Star
mhm,
Trek story," because she was looking for a good story. And I called her in the morning, and she said, "That's a great story. Let's do it together." So
mm.
she invited me to collaborate with her on a script, which with lots of machinations, which I talk about in my first book, um, this one. Um, they actually bought the story, and then that started a whole new adventure because we had to completely rewrite the story, and we
Mhm.
were only given a week to produce a finished
Wow.
script.
This was typical. I mean, it was, I don't know if you've seen the documentary in it, the whole thing they did about it. It was total chaos. All of the shows, the movies, everything, always
Yeah,
like by the skin of the pants, and it's such disarray. And, you know, Gene Gutenberg, his fixation on how he wanted it done. And it was kind of amazing that any of the movies of the shows were ever really produced to the caliber that they were, because everything seemed to be by the seat of their pants.
well, there's a lot of talent in Hollywood,
Mm,
and somehow people are able to pull stuff together and make it work.
yes.
Um, there are legendary stories about um, people starting with a script and basically throwing the script away and improvising the movie and having the movie come out a great success.
Yes.
Now that wasn't quite the thing with Star Trek. Everything was written down and very carefully prepared. And it had to be very highly orchestrated because they were doing a TV series
Hmm.
and they were under an extreme time pressure. They had to get a show out every week.
Yes.
And show productions typically lasted 2 weeks, so they interleaved the productions. But all the script work and everything else was done weeks and months ahead of time. So we basically were doing the script writing in the spring, and the show was actually filmed, I think, in late summer, went on the air in the fall. So, and all
What
during
was that satisfaction like of being able to watch that and go, we did that?
the, we had a big party. All our
Uh-huh.
friends, and
Yeah.
Judy was taking a script writing class, and her fellow students were there. We had a party at Judy's mother's parent, Judy's parents' house, and and it was very gratifying because I was one of the heroes of that particular evening. And of course, the glory doesn't last very long. I went back to school and went back to
Yes.
my classwork after that. Um, but watching this on television, you know the words because you wrote the words,
Mm,
or you wrote, or if you didn't write the words, you edited the words of your companion
yeah.
in writing the script. And Judy was a great talent. I can talk about her career in a moment, but she had a great career in Hollywood as a result of all of this. Um, Watching it on the screen, when I was writing the scene, my particular scenes, I actually visualized the actors going through the motions, and I just basically knew how the scene had to come out
Hmm.
because we had the story treatment, and I just let the actors do their thing, and I wrote down what they said.
Mm,
The dialogue came from the actors; it didn't come from me. It came from my watching what the actors were doing
yeah.
in my imagination.
Hmm.
Um,
Channeled. Hmm.
yeah, and So when I do a lot of writing, I'm basically doing the same thing. I put myself in a situation and just watch what happens and write it all
Yes.
down, you know.
It's allowing. It's called allowing,
Yeah.
allowing the story to unfold and not
Yeah.
dictating how it should be. And those are always the best write. My brother is a professional writer, and he's written scripts that have never, fortunately, ever been picked up. But his writing is that he has particular characters and a particular storyline. And as with any writer, it's like once you start writing it, you allow the characters to dictate where it's going. Let the
Oh yeah.
characters come alive. Let the characters tell the story. You're just the medium, you know.
Well, that's true. It's a little more restrictive for television writing because of
Hmm.
television's like kabuki. I mean, you know, they've got a lead in to a teaser to catch you, and then they have a variety of advertisement breaks in the story. So you have to have a hook at the end of each one of the segments in order to keep the audience hooked
Yeah.
through the advertisements and so on. And so it's very, very stylistic in that respect. And it all has
Hmm.
to be worked out in considerable detail before you actually write the script,
Yeah.
because everything has to fit in that formula. Um, so it isn't quite as free as making up
Writing
a
a book.
story and writing a story from scratch. And you know, in the books, I'm all the stories in my books are true stories. They're
Hmm.
uh, uh, recollections of things that have actually happened. In many of the cases, like especially the river stories, I kept a daily journal,
Mm.
and my companions on these excursions wanted to know what was in my journal, so I would read the stuff around the campfire. And the journals had to be honest because those guys were there, and everything
Yeah.
happened 3 or 4 hours ago, you know.
Right.
And so they
They will
saw
correct you
exactly
if you
what
got it
happened.
wrong. Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to be very honest. And I think that you develop a habit of relating stuff in a way that is very descriptive, but
Hmm.
very, very accurate and honest. And I have a very good visual memory. So when I write about stories of things that I don't have a journal, I can go back and visualize what happened and
Hmm.
then basically do the same thing. I put the cast in front of me and I just write down what they're saying and doing. You know, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
except that this happened in real life. So they're real
Exactly.
memories, you know.
And a lot of the time, like fact is bigger than the fiction. You look at some fictional thing that can never happen, and the next thing you know, like it's happened, or if somebody was just to write fact without a little flamboyancy in there, just people wouldn't get it, right? And it's, the
Well, the trick on a good story is to have a good lead sentence.
yeah,
If you get the good lead in, the rest of the story does it for it. I mean, it just makes itself up. I mean, just
yeah.
it's hard to describe the process unless you've actually been through it. Let me go back for a second and talk about Judy Burns.
Hmm.
So, as a result of the Star Trek stuff and the fact that she did become acquainted with Leonard Nimoy, and they did
Hmm.
become very good friends, by the way. Um, she got a job as a script writer, as a story writer for Mission Impossible.
Oh, wow.
And so she
Right.
wrote a number of episodes
Mm.
for the original television Mission Impossible. And then when people were talking about doing some Star Trek movies, she got the job of being the story editor for the early Star Trek
Wow.
movies.
Hmm.
And from there, she went to becoming a producer of a number of shows, very successful shows. So a couple of them were actually filmed up in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Do you remember the names?
I don't remember the names, no. But there is one that I do remember, and it was her creation, and that was MacGyver.
Oh, right.
She was
Yes.
the working producer on MacGyver and
Neat.
the
Yes.
creator of that show. So that was
Yeah, I
the
used to watch that, both of them actually, the newer
yeah.
one and the other. But yeah, I loved it. I mean, what he could get himself out of,
So
just
so
to,
that was Judy Burns, and it'll give you some idea of the talent that
yeah.
I was dealing with in my collaboration with Judy and the friendship that we obviously had and continued over the many years that followed. But it's really important because when you're working with somebody of that magnitude of
Hmm.
talent, and she is really brilliant, um, you get inspired.
Yeah.
And it was a result of my interactions with Judy and also interactions with her teacher, Bob Duncan, who was a very, very gifted and very, very accomplished writer. Television, movies, novels. He had done, and he had even written. I was an unwed mother stories for various magazines, adventure magazines, and things like that. Um, and my conversations with Bob, I think, is what really triggered my interest in writing stories. I
Mm,
just put that aside for a while. But when I started doing my journals, that's when I really started getting back into writing. The response that I got from my companions on these wilderness trips was sufficiently positive that I started taking writing a little bit more seriously. Um, what became, there's a trigger to the books. And the trigger is a misfortune. And the trigger was that my wife passed away um, almost 20 years ago now.
mm,
And I started writing these stories basically to recover from that absolutely devastating experience.
hmm.
Um, I found that it lifted my spirits a little bit
Yeah.
to write a story and just it was like I was telling the story to my dear Sarah.
Yeah.
Um, and every new story that I wrote stepped me up a little bit higher towards
Mm,
normality. And after, I don't know, a couple of dozen stories at least, I was back to being a free and I was back to being a bachelor again and being somewhat normal. You're never the same. I
no.
was married to Sarah for 20 years. It's a long time, and
Hmm.
we were very close. But I had to rebuild my life, and I succeeded in rebuilding it by writing these stories.
Hmm.
And I just kept writing. And then I ran into my editor at a party one day, and we got to talking, and she said, "Send me some stories. I want to read them." So I did. She says, "That's great. We need to do a book together." So
Neat.
that's how this got started. So
Did you?
we now got two books. Now I got a third one is written, and it's to be edited next year. That's
Wonderful.
next year's project.
Did you feel that in the process of writing that, partly to get through your grief, but very much that the presence of your wife was there helping you write it?
She's still there.
Yeah.
She's right over there, someplace where I can't see her, but I know she's there,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the body may go, but the spirit always lingers. And the more that we open up to that, a lot of people say, no, you need to let go. No, it's you may move on with living, but that person that you've lost that you were so vibrationally tied to will always be there. And I encourage people to have the conversations and and let their presence still be felt because they're there for a reason.
Most people at some point in their lives experience something dreadful.
Yeah.
And you can have one of two reactions to it. You can let it destroy you,
Hmm.
or you can let it enrich you.
Yes.
If you can recover from the trauma, you can look back at it and your world is actually richer than it was before
Hmm. Hmm.
because you've gone through an experience which is
Absolutely.
literally life-changing.
Yes. Uh, that I always say that's where people discover their courage, their strength, their abilities, and their purpose
Yeah.
by going through it. And again, allowing that process, and realizing things didn't happen to you to happen to you, they're happening for you. And it's all part of your discovery of like, who are you now because of it? And we're all going to experience loss one way or the other. Um, and I feel that, for many of us, it's yes, you're very sad that something has gone, it's no longer there. But at the same time, focus on what it gave you and what it left you and what's still within you that
Yeah.
you can carry forward.
Well, you become stronger and
Hmm.
you see the world in a different way. And
Yeah.
the world, in a sense, has more color after you recover.
Hmm.
It's a very interesting experience. Not that I encourage people to have a traumatic injury,
No, no.
but But if it does happen to you, and in most cases, it's pretty close to inevitable that you're going to run into a tragedy at some
Yeah,
point. Then it's how you get out of it that's really
yeah.
important because you really do grow through the experience.
So, people were saying they wanted to know more about Sarah. So this is why the second book, there's more about her in there.
She's in every story
Hmm.
because I was writing the stories to her,
Mm,
and I'm writing stories about her and some fairly funny passages about her. But there's little vignettes about her.
mm,
Sarah, how to describe this woman? I mean, first of all, she was a beautiful woman.
mhm,
She was a strawberry blonde.
mhm,
And there's an interesting thing about strawberry blonde. She was an anthropology student as an undergraduate. So she was studying with the Nez Perce Indians up in the state of
mhm.
Idaho. And she hooked up with a tribe's shaman, a lady named Ella. And Ella took Sarah under her wing and taught her the tribe's tribal shaman practices,
Wonderful.
basically trained her to be a shaman, and
Mm.
then adopted her into the tribe. I presume Ella's adopted daughter. So I married an Indian, a strawberry blonde Irish American Indian who was also a shaman of a tribe, an Indian tribe.
All the flavors you could think of, right? The whole buffet. Wonderful. And
She
that's the,
also had three master's degrees. She had a master's in English literature, a master's in music, and she was trained as an opera singer and sang with the Seattle Opera.
wow.
A gifted musician, as you can see, and she was also a psychotherapist
Mm,
who specialized in dealing with criminals. She,
hmm. And
uh,
that's a tough one right there. What I love is that I come across some people in life that are academic and they rest on their academics and everything is academia and it's not, where's the spirit in it? Where's the soul in it? Where's the heart in it? And
yeah,
when people take that academia and use it to enhance the spirit and the soul wisdom and, connect with heart, then I really do think that you've got a really good yin yang balance.
well,
And
she was divorced from academia. She,
mhm,
I think the problem was that she went out on a field expedition to Egypt, and being a strawberry blonde, she got so badly uh, sunburned and beat up. They actually had to put her in a plane and fly her back to a hospital in the United States
wow,
to
wow,
recover.
wow.
So that ended her career as an anthropologist
Hmm.
and archaeologist. But
No digging in there,
no,
going from
no
strawberry blonde
digging
to
for,
beetroot. Yes.
yeah, no digging for bones. She had to stay covered up. But the interesting thing was that I think the reason that Ella picked her up as her adopted daughter is that Sarah had this gift with animals.
Mm,
And it's a very Indian kind of a thing. And
yes.
I watched Sarah with wild animals, and it was absolute, when we were out galloping around the country and in backwoods and things like that. And Sarah could just walk up to wild animals, and it was, big deal. They would
Right.
adopt her.
Well, your spirit has to be calm because that animal will only be calm around you if that spirit connection is there, and you're no threat, and they feel a connection. Otherwise, you are a threat.
Yeah,
Um,
well, Sarah used to say that they talk in images.
mhm,
They don't talk in
yes,
words, they talk in images.
and
So
they
she
share
would
those
simply
images.
visualize herself as
Yeah,
part of the group, and they would
right.
accept her.
Yeah. Like trees do the same thing, they when they, rustle their leaves and things like this, they're sharing their matrix and their vibration. And
Yeah.
if you, walk through a forest and when you come out the other end, suddenly you're clearer, you're clearer about everything. And we forget that nature speaks to us all the time. It's feeding us all the time. And it's, we need to pay attention to it. This thing is that, well, I'm human, so I am top of the totem pole and I'm bee's knees and everything. It's like you are nothing without nature, without spirit, without source energy. And the more we tap into that, the more we actually discover the best of us in our human selves.
I think when I first realized that was at a campsite in Africa, and a lion cut loose.
Mm,
And I have to tell you, that is the most scary thing that you could ever hear, is a lion in full roar. So I asked the guide at the place where we were camped out. And he says, "Oh, he says a lion just took down probably a zebra, and he's
mm.
just announcing it's dinner time."
I'm not the dinner, that's okay. He's not coming for dessert, is he?
But I have to tell you, I had been dealing with crocodiles for days up to that point, and now I had the experience of dealing by sound only because the
Yeah.
lion was some distance away. But that is the scariest damn thing. I mean, honest to God, being in the middle of a wilderness where there are real dangers, real
Yes,
threats,
exactly. Exactly. And you've got to show your respect and don't take things for granted. I lived in South Africa for 11 years
Yeah.
and did a fair amount of traveling around South Africa. And, I found that one of the things I loved was the African beat. I'm a very rhythmic person, and I
Hmm.
love things that are rhythm and guttural and like bluegrass, earthy and spirit dancing together.
Yeah.
And I remember being on a farm in the Karoo where you could hear a pin drop miles away. Beautiful, gorgeous sky with the stars just shining out. A summer evening. We're sitting out on the porch, and the workers are singing. And one starts with the rhythm, and then the other da bum, and then it just one after the other, getting into that rhythm. It just penetrates your very being. It just has your soul and your heart and your spirit elevating and transcending. It is just truly an incredible, experience. And I said, there's no such thing as perfection, but there are perfect moments in time, and that was a perfect moment in time for me.
I can understand it. I haven't had that as much experience like that, but I did have something roughly the same. So we were going down the Awash River and we came around a bend, and there were ladies, native women, who were doing the laundry on the rocks by the river.
Yeah,
This story straight out of Odysseus, out
yeah.
of the Odyssey. And they were singing in three-part harmony and
Mm,
counterpoint
mm.
in a rhythmic and a melodic structure I've never heard before. It was completely unique. Africa, as you know, is a very, very big place,
It's very
and
big.
different parts of Africa are completely different than other parts of Africa. The musical traditions are very different
Yes,
in that part of the world than they were in South Africa.
but there's a
But
common
but wonderful
earthy beat
music,
to it. Mm,
wonderful tradition,
mm.
and having had that brief experience, I wished I had a recording of it, but
Yeah, I know. It's
it's
like,
just
where
in
are
my
the cell
memory.
phones back in those days where you
Yeah.
could just record something? But yeah. Yeah, but I think what it is, our generation, we didn't have that. Today they do. And then I feel that they don't really understand what they've got because we've had to hold it in our memory. We've held it in our heart. We know how it made us feel. That although we may not remember bit by bit what the song was, right, it's the feeling, that
Yes.
feeling of what it made have. And sometimes they think if you're capturing something, it's wonderful, but you dismiss it and you're on to the next. But when you didn't have anything to capture, it is captured within you, within the very being of you. And to think about it again, that warmness, that it's a reminder of how you felt at that time.
Oh
I
yeah.
can't hear the music, um, but I remember how it made me feel. And you go back to that feeling.
Well, I wished it had those are moments that you wish you could capture and
Yeah,
relive.
I know.
The whole thing, we drifted by. We're in a boat and we're drifting by.
Yeah.
So the whole thing
So
lasted
surreal.
a minute,
Yeah.
2 minutes, and we were
It lasts a
gone.
lifetime,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, why kind of Star Trek, the trek continues in Star Trek? Is this because of the episode that you did that it had such an impact? But why did you call the books that?
Um, because the first book, the start from the potato to Star Trek and beyond, the theme of the book, at least the first part of the book, was the Star Trek. That's what set off
Right.
the story. And my editor says we got to do that for the we got to continue Star Trek for the second book. And I says I wrote everything in the first book. you know.
But the
So
trek now has a different meaning, right? So the trek continues as a
well, the trick continues. We did the first part of the book, just the opening introduction to the book is what happened after we
mm,
did the Star Trek show, the
mm.
fallout from that.
Was there a
Uh,
fallout?
the fallout from it. Well, for example, I have a description of the party that we had
Hmm.
when the show went on the air, and I'm sitting with my friends, and I'm the hero of the evening because my name is up on the screen,
Right,
you
exactly.
know,
You did it. You
you
made
know. But
it.
there's more than that. I mean, um, that episode, Mike Miner did the special effects on that episode, and it got an Emmy nomination for
Mm.
special effects, which made his career. And
Hmm.
I am led to understand, but I haven't been able to confirm that he actually won an Emmy award for the special effects that he did.
Neat.
But Mike Miner became an important art director in
Hmm.
Hollywood. He did the art direction for the early Star Trek movies, for example.
Hmm.
So it made his career. And of course, it got me started. But the thing is, there's something about Star Trek which is very, very special, and that is it changed the world.
Hmm.
Now, it isn't Star Trek that changed the world exactly. None of us that did the Star Trek and what the Tholian Web was on the third during the third season, but none of us that were doing that were doing anything but a TV show.
Yeah,
We were just, making a living, having some fun doing a TV
yeah.
show. The actors, the producers, everybody in, the lighting technicians, they were just doing a TV show. Nobody had the idea that they were changing the world.
Exactly.
What happened was the world got changed because of the fans, the
Hmm.
Star Trek fans. They picked up the show and they ran with it, forcing the establishment to invest in
Continue.
the movies
Hmm.
and everything. And I mean, Star Trek's going today, and it's a
Yes.
half a century later. It's still a going deal. But it was the fans that changed the world, and
Hmm.
and that I didn't get that insight until fairly recently, and I realized that even though Judy and I were just participating in what ultimately became a world-changing
Hmm.
event, we didn't believe it at the time. We
No.
were just having fun.
Yeah.
But my heart, and I talk about this in the Trek Continues. I talk about how the fans have taken up and expanded that basic idea that's in Star Trek, and used it to change the culture worldwide, not just in the United
When
States.
you look at the characters that kind of came out of it, one of my favorites is Picard,
Yes.
right? And he went on to do kind of a different, within the Star Trek, like him,
Well,
years
and
later
Patrick
retired.
Stewart, of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
we
yeah,
know him for so many other roles.
right. A bit like there was something that he brought to it that kind of endeared you to it. It was no longer kind of the space show. It was
Yeah.
something, there was philosophy and meaning, and you wanted to look for the deeper. You wanted to see the message, and you could have different people talking about the same episode, and everybody would have had seen it and felt it from a different perspective. It kind of sparked conversation. I brought up on Star Trek, um, but for me, I was a Star Wars girl,
Uh-huh.
and I still am. I love, the force be with you, and Yoda and everything else. And I love the whole meaning of that because I'm very much about frequency and energy and everything else. But
Sure.
there were so many episodes in various Star Treks that spun off from that had such poignant meanings. And I very often, refer to humanity as the Borg. We want people to be part of the collective, but not mindless. We want people to be mindful of who they are and what they're contributing to the collective, and not just abstain and be a blob, and give up to the higher forces. So,
Yeah, too many
you know,
people have given up their individuality,
yeah,
which is unfortunate.
yeah.
Um, I'm going to kind of move in a slightly different direction, and that is um, a, a lot of the stories that I've written are about individuals, about specific individuals, both in both books and the third book as well. And I want to emphasize that in my career in the aerospace industry and in my travels, uh, doing adventure travels of various one sort or another, I've run into the most extraordinary people.
Hmm.
And so I've written stories about people who deserved
To be
to
recognized.
come to the world, to come out
Mm-hmm.
into the world and be
Hmm.
recognized.
Hmm.
Um, these are, the aerospace industry is filled with talented people,
Hmm.
but even among the talent, there are people who stand out, who
Hmm.
are true geniuses that stand above the talented crowd. And I've been very privileged to be closely associated with some of these people and be mentored by
Hmm.
some of the greatest talents in the industry. And I've written stories about these people. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands that a lot of the emphasis in my book is about the people that I've run into along the way.
Hmm.
Um, in the case of wilderness, I spent a couple of weeks sharing a boat as a boatman going through the Grand Canyon, rowing a boat through the Grand Canyon. And my one of my companions on that fellow boatman on that excursion was basically penniless. He had to borrow clothes for the expedite for the trip down the canyon. And he made his living by doing odd jobs for people, and he was loved by everybody. He was everybody's friend. So that's one extreme of somebody that I've written about that's
Hmm.
worth getting to know. The other extreme, I was in on a trip up in British Columbia, 2 weeks in the wilderness, and there were some new people that I had to get acquainted with, and there was one guy that I had been talking with for probably about 4 days, getting acquainted with him, and until he finally became comfortable enough with me to tell me who he was. He was a multi-billionaire.
Hmm.
So that's the other end of the spectrum of people that I've run into
You've got
and
somebody
written
that
about.
that is so poor but so rich by heart, and then you have somebody so rich that is only seen for his richness, that wishes for you to see him for his heart, not the identity that
Yes,
that he
exactly.
is. Yeah. Which part of British Columbia? Because obviously I'm in
There's a
British Columbia.
river called the Tachinchenny,
Hmm.
which runs from Dalton Post. Well, we picked it up at Dalton Post and ran it all the way down uh, to the ocean. Well, we joined up with the Alsek River, ran it down through Glacier Bay area
Hmm.
and into the ocean.
In
Um,
British, I live in British Columbia. It's so
yeah.
very beautiful. It's really
Well, it
beautiful.
started out. We went through Yukon territory.
Hmm.
I think that's
Hmm.
where Dalton Post is. It's part of Yukon territory, but we almost immediately crossed the border into British Columbia,
Hmm.
and then ultimately crossed into Alaska
Right.
by the end of
So
the
up
trip.
that way. Yeah, a young one of my friend's sons and a couple of other people did a wonderful journey along, was it the is it Snake Oil River?
Hmm.
And they did a documentary on it. And the guy that was behind the camera is just a genius when it comes to photography and capturing, and they put it together, and it was just extraordinary. There are four young men going on this expedition of just discovery down the river, the things that they captured, the funny situations they got themselves into, and he put it together with some music that he wasn't allowed to then share. So he never actually changed the music and put the video out. And I think he
Yeah.
should have. But it was just, an honor to watch it, and just the experience, sharing the experience of their experience.
Oh
And,
yeah. It's let me let me tell you how life-changing it can be. So my first river trip was through the Grand Canyon, and I was reliving the experience that I'd had as a boy
mhm,
listening to Emery Kolb and narrate his movie. And so I went in and I was more of an A type, maybe more of a double A type going into that experience. I came out totally tranquilized.
mhm,
There is something about going
mhm,
through, spending a little over 2 weeks in the Grand Canyon,
mhm,
running through the river. it's a life-changing
Yeah.
experience, and it really fundamentally changed the way I looked at life. And after that, I had to do a lot of rivers. I mean,
Yeah.
that got me thoroughly hooked,
That gave you the bug.
you know. But I've been on two full real explorations. One was a river in Idaho called the Lochsa. We did the first descent on Lochsa River, and then, of course, the second descent on the Omo River in Africa. Second and only descent. You can't do it. You can't run it anymore. The Chinese came in and paid for a
Mm.
dam, and they've dammed the river, and it's
Oh.
now a lake. So,
Uh,
so
people don't realize how dangerous it is. I had a doctor that loved river, river rafting and river boating. And he got caught up. I don't know what you call it when the water is swirling.
yeah, reversal.
And he got caught up and got sucked in underneath, and they never found him.
Yeah,
And,
we almost lost one of our passengers on the Elmo trip, and I've written about that in the Trek Continues. Fortunately, we had this thing about the river being a river god. And you
mm,
pay tribute to the river god before you put in. You
yeah,
actually sacrifice a little bit of food to the river god, and then you go. That gets you get your mind properly attuned to the hazards of the river.
yes,
You want
yes,
the river on your side.
yeah.
But we got in one rapid that was very much like a rapid in the Grand Canyon, a really bad rapid. And we got the boat I was in and the boat that followed us both flipped in a reversal. Um, and I got swept away. The other people in my boat got swept away, but one of the people in the boat stayed behind, and we thought we had lost her.
Hmm.
But fortunately, she was able to work her way through free. Now, that was an interesting woman. She was a very large, very powerfully built woman, but she was a professional surfer.
Ah,
Yeah, toured the world in surfing championships. So she was able to take care of herself in the water. But getting trapped in a reversal
mm,
is really dangerous, really
yeah,
dangerous. There's a horizontal vortex, and
hmm,
it just takes you underneath and it holds you there.
yeah,
Um, I was on a, I was learning to kayak on the Rogue River in Oregon, and we had a similar thing where one of our instructors got caught in a similar situation and nearly drowned. And
hmm,
so we had a very we were very subdued after that. Let me
yes.
put it that way.
Well, it's like, oh, this is all beautiful and tranquil, and all of a sudden, then you
Just
get reminded.
just like that.
Yeah.
Now this was a guy who he was trained for Olympic kayaking,
Mm,
for Olympic competition, and he nearly lost his life.
yeah.
So that's how dangerous this can be.
Yeah, we used to have swimmers in South Africa. There's certain beaches, they look beautiful, and the big signs do not swim. And people kind of go in. And I remember pulling a boyfriend out because the water just sucked him.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just pulling while I'm trying not to fall in myself. But then we lost, really good swimmers that suddenly that tide, it takes control and you are no match for it. So, I think it's a great reminder that, you know, respect nature. Nature is something that is here to provide us, here to uplift us, here to give us everything we need.
And
But
here to kill us if we're not wary.
exactly, exactly. And I think it's like when you have those near deaths that you go, okay, nature, I bow down to you. And it's
Well,
kind of a wake up
I've
call.
certainly had my share of experiences, and yes, I was a surfer. Um, and so I understand what riptides are all about. I did
Mm,
my own, I actually rescued a few people myself. So
mm,
I've had that experience. But yeah, growing up in Southern California,
yeah,
if you're a young man or a young woman, you go surfing. I mean, it's
yeah,
just the way it is.
right. The Beach Boys, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that taking your life experience, something that had such an impact in you, and not keeping it to yourself, putting those stories in a book, sharing the impact that they had on you, highlighting them for who they are, is, and one of the greatest signs of respect of the impact that a person has had. And I think we're all too dismissive of people that impact us because, society has us next, next, next. And, we don't sit with the people, give them the greatest gift we can give them is time
Yeah.
and patience and attention and really learn from them. And there was a reason why wisdom was passed around the campfire. Everybody was around the fire being warmed in a circle, which is a synonymous for with the circle of life, and sharing the stories that had an impact that it ignited, inspired. And by sharing people's stories, what you're saying to is, I see you, you count, and you had an impact on me. And through
Yeah.
that, they will now have an impact on the person that reads them.
Um, I think when you have these shared experiences, you become much closer to people
Mhm.
than, it's in ordinary life. We run into people all the time, but there's a business of when you're out in the wilderness and you're dependent on other people for your existence, for saving your life in emergency situations. Um, and you're in a position where you can save their life in an emergency situation. The companionship is very deep. I guess you could say it's a kind of romantic relationship, but
It's a
not in
soul
the,
connection. It's a
yeah,
soul connection. Yeah.
there is a connection there that
Hmm.
that is much deeper than normal. And you retain that many, many years after you've lost touch with these people.
Hmm.
You still have the memories and the shared experience with people. And yes, I've been through a number of life-threatening situations. They make good stories, by the way,
Because you're on the other side of them
because
now.
I'm on the other side and I can look back and I say, wow,
Yeah, God, I
that's
got
a hell
through
of a
that.
story. I'm going to write that one up.
Yes. Did your
And they
wife
make
go
good,
on
very
these with you?
exciting stories, but they're
Mm,
they're you know they're true stories.
right.
And what the message that comes through is you keep your head. Most of the time, you'll get through it somehow.
Yeah,
If you don't get through it, you never get a chance to write about it. So
exactly. So you want to get through it so you can document it. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
well, I'm going on 84. I'll be 84 in a month, and literally in 4 weeks. And I have a lot of experience of life to live and share.
yeah,
Um, there's a lot that's happened over an 84-year period.
exactly.
Um,
I'm 71 and I get teased all the time by my kids, and I say, look, that is 7 decades of life and experience. And I moved to, this town where I'm at now, and there's some people that have never left the island, never left this town.
mhm.
And I think I've lived in 4 countries. I've traveled 33. I've lived life. I've had an awful lot of rocky roads and a different form of Grand Canyon, it's
Yeah.
but out of that is always the discovery of we're so much more, we are so resilient. What did I learn from it? What can I do with it? And I think that's the exploration of life. Find something that gets you up in the morning, that gives you a zest of discovery. We've lost our wonderment in many ways. And I think if we could just be wondrous, and if we physically can't travel ourselves, then read the books that take you on a journey. They will spark memories of journeys within your own life, bring them back to life, bring those feelings back to life, and maybe even encourage you to kind of recreate, or go out there and explore some other options today. But, you know, age is
Oh,
just a number, right?
100%. Well, I traveled the stars as a boy,
Hmm.
and I traveled through time as a man.
Hmm.
Um, I've had a lot of interesting adventures, but each one of those adventures has enriched me, has made
Yeah,
the world around me much more colorful than it had been before. So
right.
that's something that I do encourage everybody to go out. Um, we all have adventures. I mean, a simple thing like it's not so simple, actually. Getting married is a real adventure.
Yeah.
You know, getting a new job, that's a new adventure. If you look at it from the proper perspective, look at that experience as a new adventure. I
Yes.
think it does enrich your life considerably. It's not just another humdum thing that you go through.
Well, I mean, obviously you're an explorer because you've got 19 patents. So you're an inventor, aerospace engineer. Did you ever actually work with astronauts? What kind of engineering did you do?
Oh, I've been involved in designing rockets. I've been involved in satellites. I've been involved in radar. Um, I did some pioneering work in laser weapons, ray guns.
Mm.
Um,
Very, very sci-fi.
yeah, uh, I was one of the people who helped make that practical
The arm?
potential weapon system.
Oh, right.
Um, right in the very early days of that. Um, I've done some pioneering mathematics. I've just been involved in all kinds of interesting things. When I left college with a bachelor's degree, I was looking for a job and I lucked out, and I've written about this. I lucked out by being hired into a group of professional inventors. I got hired into that group because they were looking for a maverick, and
Mm.
I was definitely a maverick. I didn't do things the normal way.
What's normal?
So I had a certain creative spark that they were looking for, and they trained me to be an inventor, a professional
Mm.
inventor. And I got a couple of patents out of it and did very well. And then after a couple of years, my goal was to go back to graduate school and get further education, which I did. And they encouraged that, by the way. They thought that was a good plan. But I was, but inventing is an art form. It's like the artists in the Renaissance went through bodegas. They didn't go through school. They
Hmm.
trained under a master,
Yes.
and that's how they learned the craft. Well, I
Hmm.
trained under a master inventor, and my
Hmm.
colleagues were professional inventors. And the way we trained is we invented. That's what we did for
You
we
saw the possibilities all the time,
yeah.
right? You don't know until you're willing to make the discovery. Try this,
So
try that, right?
so I became a generalist, and when I went to graduate school, I discovered that the academic world is not appropriate for me at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I've written about that. I've written about the problems that I had in graduate school. That's in the second book. Um, I got a very good graduate education, by the way. Don't get me wrong, but it had certain pains because I
It was
wasn't I
limited.
wasn't I wasn't suited for that kind of a life.
Yeah.
I'm a generalist,
Mm.
and going into industry, I got knocked around from job to job within the industry. Um, as I say, I've worked on rockets, I've worked on satellites, I've worked on all kinds of interesting things. I did one of the things that I did actually flew into space,
Mm.
my own design. Um, I couldn't have done that unless I had that creative background, that
Right.
background as an inventor. So I've invented. I have no idea how many inventions I've created. It's on the order of 100 or more.
Wow.
But you only patent things that are going to turn out to have
Mm.
economic value, and that's usually done by the company you're working for.
Hmm.
So while I have a lot of patents, I have many, many more inventions than that, which have
Mm.
contributed. I mean, these inventions are being used.
Hmm.
They're just not they're not in the patent files at all.
Right.
They're just part of the common culture now. Everybody uses them, uses my ideas. People have forgotten where the ideas came from. They just use
Can
them.
you give us one? An example of one?
Yeah, I can give you one example. You have a camera in your cell phone,
Hmm.
and the camera has an automatic focus sensor.
Hmm.
Okay. The theory behind that automatic focus sensor is something that I invented. It was my first patent.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Especially, my son-in-law is constantly taking pictures of his kids. Thanks you too. It's
Yeah.
always having to go in and out of focus. So, yeah, I mean, look at the impact that's had. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely huge.
nobody knows where that theory came from, but I know where it came from,
Right.
you know.
But beyond, the fact patterns and everything, it is the self-satisfaction of the discovery. oh, I didn't know that was possible. Oh, that's really
Yeah.
cool. That really works. And I think that's, again, something we kind of lose in life, especially with so much automation and everything else. It's that keep the discovery alive, keep the possibilities alive.
Well,
Everything I've ever gone and done in my life, I've had no idea whether I could do it or not until I tried. And some things
absolutely.
backfired and other
Well,
things
and the other
worked.
thing is you have to let it go. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody remembers who invented fire.
Yeah.
Who invented the alphabet? We know where the alphabet came from.
Uh-huh.
It came from a copper mine in the Sinai Peninsula, and but we have no idea who those people were that created that thing.
Right. Right. And that's the thing I think in life is that be willing to explore, be willing to engage. You've explored, you've inquired, you've engaged, you've allowed, and all of that not only has produced the books, but it's shown a life of participation. And I feel there are so many people today that are waiting for life to happen to them and not participate in making life happen for them. And, through your book, it's going to be the stories of people that had an impact on you, but also in their own way are participating in their own lives. So we say inspiration begets invitation.
Yeah.
And through reading this book, hopefully it inspires people to look at their own life and go, well, what's my contribution? How can I make an impact by simply having a conversation with someone and getting to know them?
Well, that's the feedback I've gotten from
Mhm.
any number of readers where I've gotten responses. Two things. Number one, I've helped some people get through the traumas that they've had,
Mhm.
so that's very gratifying.
Yeah.
And other people, um, they just start to look at the world in a little different way than they did before,
Hmm.
going through, by re-experiencing my adventures
Right.
vicariously. But I encourage people, just get in the car and go for a long drive.
Yes. Yes.
Take a week and just go drive someplace.
Yeah.
I've done that several times, and
I used to do
it's
that.
an
Yeah.
extraordinary experience. You run into so many interesting people.
Hmm.
Um, Go backwoods cafes, get off the beaten track, get off the
Hmm.
freeways, go to the
Yeah.
little towns, and
I
go to
used
the
to do that
cafes
all
and
the
just
time. Take
and
myself away
start
for the
start
weekend
talking
and
with
yeah.
start talking with the waitress.
Yes. You
You
never
know,
know. You never know what the story is. And I've always done that, less now. But back in my youth, I loved to just get in my car, point it, go somewhere and just experience the people and end up in their homes having, dinner with them and sharing stories. And it's magical. It really is. And I think it's just I didn't go knocking on the door, say, I'm coming for dinner. You just kind of meet them and you strike up a conversation and they feel a synergy. And the next
yeah,
thing you know, come for dinner. And, it's wonderful because then you're in their terrain and you're sharing about their life and their stories and it enhances your own story. So, yeah, I'm,
and what I've discovered is that the world is full of richness.
mm, and
Every
enriching.
person is has got a story.
Yes.
Every single person, good or bad, they've all
Hmm.
got a story, and their stories are worth listening to.
Yeah. I'm very much on the philosophy that the true enrichment and abundance is in the and the true currency is in people and love,
Yeah,
kindness, caring, and love. Money is a tool. Money is a byproduct that we need. It is not the definition. And if you really want to know a rich man, as you did with the billionaire, you met him for who he was, the enriched character of who he was, not defined by his money, which
yeah.
is probably the reason why he takes those trips. I want to just be an ordinary person and not be the billionaire.
Well, he was an ordinary person because he started out with a pickup truck and built
Mhm.
a monster business as a result of that. So he was entirely self-made.
Mm,
And what he did with his life was contribute to the arts. And I
mm,
won't go into the detail because that is his story, not mine.
mm. Right.
But he was an entirely self-made man. And I have the utmost respect for somebody like that
Yeah.
rather than somebody who inherits a great deal of wealth
Yes.
and then
And an attitude along with
mostly dissipates it.
it.
Yeah. So,
We get to a certain stage in life, we just don't tolerate that anymore. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's nice, but give yourself, well, there's an intellectual exercise that I tell people sometime. You got $1 billion, which means that your daily revenue is $1 million a week. Okay. That's just from the interest from
Mm.
your savings. Okay. You have to spend $1 million a week. Go and try and spend $1 million a week. You can't spend it.
What will no,
You
go and
can't
invest it.
spend it.
No,
You just cannot
there's
spend it.
only so many cars, so many planes, so many this, so many that. So this million this week is going into this musical program. The million next week is going into that program.
Yeah.
Go and seed possibilities for other people.
Or build a big business
Yeah,
and give jobs to a lot of
yeah,
people, you know.
yeah.
Um, that is something that most people don't understand about the very rich, because
Hmm.
they can't spend the money. They don't know
No,
how to spend it.
I call it the ivory tower syndrome, where they're so up in their ivory tower, or the gold tower, if we're talking about someone, but they've forgotten to take care of the roots or the people that take care of the
Yeah.
foundation. And the next thing is the foundation starts crumbling and they wonder why. You're so wrapped up in your gold and counting your money that you've actually forgotten what life is all about, where the true enrichment really lies. And it
Well,
lies with the people.
that's Scrooge McDuck with
Yes,
his pile of
exactly.
gold. You know.
Yeah, I draw the analogy a lot that for a long time in my life I was the hare. I'm a visionary. I see everything to its completion. Let's build it.
Mhm.
Let's do it. Let them come. I see it in its finale, and not other people saw it with me. So the actual getting things done, was I'm the visionary, but I didn't get the people to come and do it with me. I've become the tortoise, and in doing so, just like you going down the river and seeing everything around you, I can lift up that leaf and see what's underneath it. I can pay attention to what's all around
Yeah.
me. And it's just so much more enriching and meaningful. All those little stories, all those little things that are around you that make everything up. And you know, we can't say this to our youth because they're designed to go forward and at full speed. We did too back in the day. But now it's like pay attention of the gift of slowing down, of being present in the moment, of observing and embracing and even devouring that moment, and pack it in with you, because then that's what you take forward to the next moment, and you become so much more rich by it. So that's what you've done with your river rafting. That's what you've done with the books. You're sharing the enrichment. You're sharing the
There,
joy
there's
of the moment.
there's so much to see.
Mm,
So I was walking with a young lady a long, long time ago, and she was interested in photography, but she didn't know what to photograph.
mhm,
And I pointed out something. I said, "You see that sidewalk in front of us?
mhm,
See the cracks in the sidewalk with some grass growing up through
mhm.
those cracks?" I said, "Photograph that."
Yeah. Hmm. There
Changed her.
is,
It
yeah,
changed her.
yeah, yeah. Because we see life break through, and we see life is resilient, and we see that everything has its place. There was somebody I interviewed where on her commute to work would draw people on the subway. And like she may even just have many hands on the bar.
Hmm.
That's all the picture, or the back of somebody, or this or that. But every one of it told a story of the commute. Everybody's on their way somewhere,
Yeah.
but just from every one of those drawings. And then eventually people asked her to put it in a book, because it's poetry through the drawings. And she was doing it for herself. She just didn't realize it had such an impact. But it's capturing that moment in time. And I think that's one of the things it does. It slows us down in time to see what's in front of us, to pay attention instead of blinkers and rushing through.
Yeah. Well, if somebody can get that in their heads at an early age,
Yeah.
I wish schools could teach that, but they don't. But maybe religions can teach that. It's possible. Um, but
It depends.
you have to be able to walk away from the busy world. You have to be in the busy world, and you have
Mhm.
to go run flat out for periods of time, but you also have to be able to get away from that and just sit and watch, just sit
Sit
and
and watch.
think. Yeah.
I'm an observer. When I traveled, my favorite things would be at a lovely coffee bar outside, watching life going by, watching the various people, kind of
Yeah.
wondering what their story is, or kind of guessing what their story is by the chatter, what they're wearing, and their rush. And I just loved the entire story that it gave me. And, I'm just being still and watching life running around me. Some people, you're not participating. I say, I am participating. I'm the camera. I'm the capturing of it, right? And it's like, I'm sharing the story of life that is here and I'm absorbing it. And I
Yeah.
absolutely loved that, So, and invariably end up talking to somebody and kind of sharing experience, which is important. This has been absolutely wonderful. I love what you're doing.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
when is the third book going to come out?
Well, the project is to edit the book next year. And then there's a lot of fussing and fiddling with publicity and so on.
Hmm.
Getting the book designed, getting the cover, uh, getting artists to do the covers and things of that sort, and getting the type layout. And so it'll probably be somewhere into well, next year's 90 is 2026. 27
Hmm.
is probably when the book's going to come out.
Okay.
And we'll probably time it for book buying season, which is either middle of the year or Christmas, one of the two.
Mhm. Well, I do a show every year on the people I've interviewed with books as a suggestion for Christmas presents, and I most certainly will be doing one adding this to the list because I think this will make a great gift. And teenagers up, right? Sharing the stories and just as I encourage people to have a podcast party, like a book club, have a podcast club. Everybody listen to the podcast, take notes, and share afterwards.
Yeah.
It's the same with the books. It's like you're going to get something out of it of where you're at in life. But when you start talking with others about that and start sharing, this is what it did for me, or that this did it, this for me, it just broadens this whole story, expands it out, and I think that's something we need to do. Don't always just keep it to yourself. Talk about it,
Oh,
share about it.
absolutely. And entertain.
Yes.
My stories are intended to entertain people. They were intended originally to entertain Sarah
Hmm.
and a different Sarah. and and apparently they succeeded in entertaining a lot more than just Sarah.
Hmm.
So I'm very pleased at the reaction that I've had. And I encourage other people to get to know some of the people that I've gotten to know.
Right.
Some of my mentors, some of my friends. These are really people
Hmm.
really worth knowing.
Now, I am going to ask on the book cover, we have the rapids and we have the rocket ship, but you've got somebody playing the saxophone. Is
Yeah,
this,
that's me.
and that's you? You play the saxophone?
Well, I played semi-pro, and in the first book, I've got a story about that. Uh,
I love the saxophone. Call it the
but
saxophone.
yeah, and I played semi-pro in high school, and then I continued playing through college, and then kind of dropped it after I left college.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I made substantial amount of money, went into my college funds playing.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And I kind of feel that if people are musical and rhythmical and get into that flow of life, that creativity and that possibility is constantly there. You see the rhythm, you see the rhyme, you
Yeah.
see the flow, right? And um, I have a grandson that's 2.5 that has Down syndrome. He can hear music out of everything. Kind of
Hmm.
reminds me of the movie August Rush back in 2007 of a prodigy that could hear the cars going over the grate and pick up the beat
Yeah.
and wrote an entire symphony just from the sounds of the city. And I think that is something that music does for us. It opens us up to receive, opens us up to tap into the rhythm, into the flow, into the frequency. And I think it's absolutely wonderful. So whether you play it or whether you just listen to it, let it be a part of your life because it just helps you open up to see and feel things in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was fortunate in having very good training, um, and having maybe a little bit of talent, not a lot, because I did play with musicians who were really talented,
Hmm.
and you know the difference when you're playing with those guys.
Right,
So
right. Yes, I have another genre called For the Love of Music, and I've interviewed some musicians that have been in the business 40, 50, even 60 years. and it's just phenomenal. You know, they're still performing. They are the heart and the soul. You know, they are the music, and it's just nectar. Love it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something about musicians, you're already in sync with your heart and soul, and that's really good. So, to buy the books, tell us where they can buy the books and where they can find you and your social medias, please, Han.
All right. Well, the books are available on Amazon and on at Barnes and Noble, both places. Um, and what they do is they print up the book and will get the book to you within a couple of 3 days, something like
So,
that after
yep,
you order the book.
right.
Um, I have a website, chesterlrichards.com, and you can get a lot more information, interviews, and various tidbits and things from that website. I have a Twitter site as well, which has an unpronounceable name to it, but you can get through Chester L. Richards, and the same with a Facebook site.
Yeah,
Uh,
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
yeah,
And I'm just going to spell it for people who are listening. Chester, Chesterl, Richards, Richards.com, chesterrichards.com. And, just this again, Christmas is around the corner. Books are good to give to somebody at any time. Any time is a wonderful gift to give, but especially at Christmas when everything is like, you know, what do you give? They have everything already, just buying something for the sake of giving. Give a book that has meaning, that keeps on giving, that incites a conversation, that brings up a great memory, that makes people look at people in a different way, because that is a gift that keeps on giving. So both of these books would be absolutely perfect to give as a Christmas gift this year. Any year, but this year is around the corner. So thank you so much, Chester, for sharing. It's been absolutely delightful. I love your journey in life. You've certainly seized the day, you've experienced the moment, the ups and the downs, but the resilience and the joy and the purpose of living never has left you. It's always had you moving forward. And just the sharing of the stories, the respect of the people that you've shown by sharing those stories and the impact it had on you, I know it will have impact on the people that read it as well.
well,
So
I hope
thank you
so.
so much.
And I want to thank you. It's been had a lot of fun here with this conversation with you today. So thank you very much for having me here.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. And thank you. So, folks, remember your story matters. Everybody's story matters. And we need to share those stories. We need to see each other in a different light. We need to give each other time and conversation and connection. And, we can get through anything and everything if we're willing to go through the process. Just tap into a little flow and rhythm, and it will help you get there. So, until next time, folks, bye for now.